approaches, I wanted to do this little video just to give you some little study tips and kind of tell you what I want you to really focus on, so that we can all get off to a good start and kind of do good on this first practical. Because again, the practicals, if you can really score really well on the practicals, it takes a ton of stress off the lecture exams, which because they're multiple choice are always going to be a little bit trickier. Okay, so I thought I'd do this little video. Hopefully it's going to help you guys, and then we'll all do really, really well on our first practical. Okay, so you guys, with the modules, for every unit you get your objectives. Okay, so you get your objectives for the lectures, you get your objectives for the lab stuff. So what you want to do with these is you want to kind of take your objectives and you want to make sure that you can find all of these things on the images that I've kind of provided. Okay, so eventually it'll be on the blue door stuff and other stuff, but you want to really take the images that I gave for like the practical stuff and just make sure you can take all these and you can kind of find everything. Now, when you see in this one, it has these little slides. Like if we were in class, we would be using the microscopes and we'd be looking under slides. It's not that I'm going to ask you to identify any of these things kind of in this cuboidal epithelium. These are just supposed to help you know that it's cuboidal epithelium. Okay, so for practical purposes, when you get a picture of a slide or you get an image or you get something like that, you're going to tell me simple squamous epithelium. Okay, you're not going to tell me nucleus, cytoplasm, cell membrane. You know, those things might be on like a picture of a cell or something like that, but they won't be in the tissue stuff. Okay, so you just want to make sure you can go through this list here. And again, you're responsible for everything on the list. You're responsible for all the things in your lab manual and all the things in your textbook. But you want to make sure that all those pictures of those slides and those images, you can give me the proper name of what those are going to kind of be. And we're going to look at some examples as we sort of move along. Okay, so you want to take the lab objectives, go through, make sure you can identify all these slides, and then there's a couple other things that we want to just make sure that we can label. Okay, so this is again another one where we're just identifying tissues. Okay. Now we move on to the next part here, and this is going to be the terminology stuff. There's a bunch of terminology in this unit, so these are the pictures, and again, we'll see them in a second here, but you want to make sure you can give me all the terminology stuff, right? So the anatomical position, quadrants, regional terms, cavities, membranes, the planes. You have a bunch of directional stuff, a bunch of kind of regional terminology, but again, you want to make sure you can take that image that I'm going to show you in a second here, and you can label all those things, okay? The one thing people forget about a lot in the first unit is they skip over the microscope, but there will be some questions on just identifying and kind of labeling the microscope. So don't skip on those or kind of miss out on those points, because those can be kind of some easier points that kind of pop up. But a lot of people, you know, they'll concentrate on the tissues, they'll concentrate on the skin and the nails, but they'll kind of forget about the microscope. But I'm telling you, those are going to be on there, so make sure you know those and you can label the parts of the microscope. The last part of our unit is the skin, and we also have some, fingernail, hair stuff that we have to sort of know. So you can see in this one, we have the layers of the skin. We have all the different little parts. Again, we'll see the pictures here in a second too. And then you have this one where you have in the dermis, you have all the different little glands, spacious oil glands, parts of the hair, right? We have all these blood vessels, all these other little things that we'll kind of cover when we get into chapter 5. Okay, so again, you want to find all of these things in the images that are provided for you to kind of practice on. Okay, so here's the pictures that I'm going to use for this one. And again, I'm not promising you that these will be the only thing in there, but again, if you know these, you'll do really, really well, and this will be 90% of everything that kind of shows up on your exam. Okay, so make sure you can label all the different parts of the microscope. You want to make sure you can get all the different regions and terminology stuff on the front part of the body and the back part of the body, right? A lot of times these are a little bit trickier, so you want to just remember, you want to take these images, just practice it over and over and over until you have it down really, 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 really well. And then when it shows up on your practical, it'll be really, really easy, okay? And again, these are all the answers for the other images that I just gave you, okay? But you want, again, you just want to practice these until you have them down. And my suggestion to you is print out the practice images, okay, with the answers on there, and make sure that you can kind of label them. Because a lot of times I'll stare at this picture and I'll just kind of name them off. But when it gets to where I have to actually go back to this picture and it's pointing to something specific and I have to write it down, it's a little bit trickier and I can kind of forget. And again, you have a time limit on your practical, so you want to make sure that you can do these pretty easily, okay? But again, it's just practice and just going over it again and again so that you know it really, really well. Okay, now we move on to our planes. So I have my 3 planes. You want to make sure if I give you one of these images, is it the sagittal plane? Is it the transverse plane? Again, you just want to put these on your phone and just practice them as much as possible. These are the pictures for the cavities. Okay, so we looked at all the different cavities in the body, kind of what's in each cavity. But again, we want to make sure we get, dorsal-ventral. We want to make sure we get the abdominal cavity. We want to make sure we know all the different little subsections to each of these. And then we get into our quadrants. So make sure you know the quadrants. And again, you're going to give me the full name of everything, okay? So not just the short form. You're going to give me right upper quadrant, instead of just giving me the initials, because then I can only give you 1 point. Here all are when we break it up into the 9 regions. So again, we want to know each of the names for those. And then we get into make sure you can label all the parts of the cell, but this one should be pretty easy, okay? So make sure you can take all the different parts on this image and label everything. Okay, so here's the answers for that one. And then we get into the stuff that we haven't really covered yet. So this is going to be chapter 5, part of the integumentary system. But this is a good one because it's got, the different parts of the skin, and it's got everything else that we'll sort of find inside the skin. So this one, again, once we've gone through chapter 5, you can come back to this one and make sure you can find all the different little parts in here. Okay, but here's all the answers for this one. And again, it could be this image, it could be one from your lab manual, but it'll be very, very similar to the ones that I've kind of put on there. Okay. Now we get to the layers of the epidermis. Okay, so we want to make sure you can label all the different layers of the epidermis. So here's this one here. And you want to remember that, thick skin is going to have 5 layers, thin skin is going to have 4, so you want to sort of count them up and want to know which one is kind of missing. But again, we'll get to that one in chapter 5. Okay, now we got to get to the fingernail. So you got to remember the integumentary system is your skin, but it's also your hair and your nails. So we got a few extra things to be able to label for this one. Okay, so same thing, fingernail, and then we have some for the hair, so you want to know all the different parts of the hair and sort of what makes them a little bit more distinctive. Okay, so that's a really good image. And then we have some pictures of the models that we would be using in our classroom, but these are again all found in your lab manuals, where you can kind of find all the different things that are sort of in those little layers of the skin and all the things we'll find in all those different little spots. Okay, so that's another good one. This is another good one. And again, these will make more sense as we go through chapter 5, and I'll point out the real distinctive features where when you're looking at them, it'll be a little bit easier to sort of know which one's which and differentiate. Okay, and then this is the last part of our practice stuff, but you want to just, again, go over this over and over, but you want to make sure you can identify all these tissues, and again, you want to give me the proper full name, okay? So if it's a muscle tissue and you just say muscle, you're only going to get 1 point. You got to tell me it's cardiac muscle. You got to tell me it's skeletal muscle. If it's connective tissue, you got to give me all the proper terms. Okay, so these are the ones that are on here. And again, these are just an example of something you can kind of go through and be like, okay, I want to practice these until I know it really, really well. So for this one, we had our simple columnar epithelium. And this is what you have to give me to get full points. Okay, so you get 1 point for epithelium. You get 1 point if you just put simple columnar. You got to put the whole proper name if you want to get the 2 points. And this one is going to be our stratified squamous epithelium. So again, you got to give me that proper name. This one, again, you're looking for all the open spaces in there, and I can see the different little fibers. This is a real distinctive one. So loose areolar connective tissue. And again, there's always somebody every single year that kind of puts connective tissue after everything. But again, you can only put connective tissue after the ones that are connective tissue. So if you put connective tissue after something that's kind of not connective tissue, like people, and I know it sounds kind of silly, but people put skeletal muscle, connective tissue. But if you do that, you're going to lose 1 point. Okay, so just put the connective tissue. Sometimes people kind of panic and they just start putting things in there. Only put the connective tissue after the connective tissue ones. So loose areolar connective tissue. This one everybody hopes ends up on there. But this one, again, a lot of people lose points because they'll put adipose, but they'll forget to put, okay, that it's loose connective tissue. This one is another one that everybody hopes shows up on there because you can see it really distinctively. But this one's easy because it's just my skeletal muscle. Now we have this one here. And again, you got to put elastic, dense connective tissue. So don't forget the connective tissue part. This one. We got the simple squamous epithelium. This one, another cool one. This one looks really, really cool under the microscope too. This is going to be my hyaline cartilage, okay? But again, it's cartilage, but cartilage is a type of connective tissue. So don't forget that connective tissue part. And this is going to be my bone or my osseous tissue. But again, I got to put bone, osseous tissue, connective tissue. This one, again, we just looked at this one in our last unit here with the muscles, but I can see these little intercalated discs here, and that's going to tell me that this is cardiac muscle. This one, again, is one that everybody hopes shows up on there. This is going to be the simplest of the tissues. This is going to be just my nervous tissue. Okay. This one, again, real cool one of our blood. I got to put blood, connective tissue to get the full points. Another one where, for a lot of these, again, I'm looking, are there a lot of space or is there not a lot of space? This one's going to be loose because there's a lot of space in there, and then it's my reticular connective tissue. Okay. This one you can see these little cubes in here with that central nucleus, simple cuboidal epithelium. And then again, you want to just go over these a lot. You want to study really, really hard for this one. We want everybody to get off to a really good start. And again, part of that is just making sure that I do really, really well on the practical. All of you guys should be able to get 80, 90% on the practical. And then again, that'll take a lot of stress off of your lecture exam, okay? And then in the other study guides, there's kind of all the images of the slides, all the images that you might have to label. So you want to really start kind of going over that stuff now so that when it comes up in after next week, you'll be ready to go.